Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Mercedes has just dropped the GLE 2024 model year, and they facelifted it just a tiny little bit in the front and the rear, but they also added new powertrains in the lineup. So what we're gonna do now is talk about some of the spec in tech, then of course jump into Photoshop and have a look at the front, side, and rear, and also the interior. I'm gonna show you what's new here in the 2024 facelift. It comes with new styling, obviously, just some tiny tweaks and a 48-volt hybrid powertrain. The lineup now includes the new plug-in hybrid GLE 400e, and this puts out 381 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque. Not bad, and the entire lineup has now also been electrified, with the majority of the models receiving an integrated 48-volt hybrid system. And the beastly V8 AMG GLE 63S is still the king of the lineup, with the highest output of 603 horsepower, and the 4-cylinder GLE 350 is still the weakest one with 255 horsepower. A bigger turbocharger and updated software is also available for the AMG GLE 53, and for 2024 several new features become standard in the AMG variants, including the AMG Performance exhaust standard on those models, and augmented reality for navigation is also standard. You have parking assistance and heated and ventilated front seats, and you get the AMG steering wheel in the AMG variants as standard now as well. There's no pricing yet for the new 2024 GLE, but I guess you can expect it to be a slightly more expensive than the pre-facelift model when it reaches dealerships later this year. So let's jump into Photoshop here. Let's have a look at what's new with this design. I think the GLE, every time I see this car out on the streets, I'm blown away by the stance of this SUV. I think it's one of the best stanced SUVs ever, if not the best. I don't know exactly what it is about this car that I love so much, but it has to be the square back. If you do the coupe, it completely ruins everything about this car. It's one of these cars that the contrast between the SUV coupe and the SUV, normal SUV, the squareback, is so big that it makes or breaks the car. So looking at the front end, this is the GLE 53 that we're going to compare today. So we have this new surface, new intakes in the bottom is new for the 2024 model, bringing it up to the same styling as a lot of other newer Mercedes models, the new SL, and you have the E-classes and the C-classes as well. They all have this, I think they call it the jet wing or something like that, this integration of the intakes, which is new from the previous generation. I think the previous generation looked really great. I liked these daytime running lights because it gives it a pretty distinct identity, and it also fits the E-Class, because we have two light bars, and when it's two, it means that it is the E-Class. It's the same in the sedan, and the C-Class has one LED and the S-Class has three, so this kind of felt right to have in the GLE. And I also like that the grille is inverted here, so we have it going this way instead of going in the traditional Mercedes way, having more of a graceful smile, but I really think it suits this type of package. So you have new headlights. So this E-Class styling, or E-LED with two light bars, is gone, and now we have a bit more complex design, but it still has, obviously, with all these elements in it, it still has a pretty clear identity in the front face, and I think that is important. Even though these proportions, you can't really mistake it for anything else than a GLE, but when you add some strong graphics and details like that on the front end and the rear as well, you hammer in that identity even more. So looking at the side view, the old GLE up top and the new one with some new color options in the bottom. We have new wheels for the 2024 model year. The GLE 63 comes with 22-inch brand new wheels as well for the 2024 model year. But in the side view, really not a lot of changes that you can see. Even the lower part here seems to be exactly the same as the new model, and we do see some styling features. We do see the graphics of the headlights and the taillights being a little bit different, from the pre-facelift model, which is natural. But looking at the rear end, this is by far my favorite view of the GLE. Every time I see it, I sit behind it in traffic, I just have to film it and share it on my Instagram stories, because it's so planted, and it all has to do with these big muscle fenders in the rear, and then we have the tire sitting almost flush with this surface here, and the width of the tire also plants the car down on the ground. It feels like one of these Halo, the video game Halo, military cars, beefy, planted, and it has this special presence about it that I love about the GLE. And that, of course, didn't go away in the new one, because they barely changed anything. They did change the taillight, the integration, the internal parts, and the LEDs from having these rectangle and the square, the triangle shape that we have up here, to some more simplistic design, and I like both of these. I think both of these have a decent identity to them. There's nothing really new that I can see in the lower part of the GLE. This is a very carefully facelifted design, because this is selling really well right now, and I guess they don't want to screw that up by changing it too much. But this plantedness is unique for the GLE. It reminds me of the original BMW X5, which also had those hips, and then you had the wheels sitting right flush with the hips, creating this solid look, and it sat perfectly on the ground, and that's the same kind of feeling I get with the GLE. Now, looking at the interior right here, so not a lot of changes in the interior either, and this has, as you can see, we have this big iPad right here in the pre-facelift, and that is still right here in the facelifted version as well. But in this case, in the case of the GLE, I think it actually works pretty well to have these two screens here, because it feels like it's semi-integrated in the rest of the design. I like that we have some parts, some styling elements around it to kind of tell you that this was intended to be here. This display is not just stuck randomly onto some surface in the interior. You have some framing for it. And I think stuff like that, small details like that, make a big difference with the intention for having the screen here. You can see that we have a nice framing for it here with this chamfer also going all around it from one end all the way to the other. And we also have a new steering wheel for the 2023 model. You can see that the center part feels more like a pie in the pre-facelift, and now it feels almost like a ball that's sitting in the middle. I really like this design. It feels it's a shape that I want to touch and feel the materials of and the shape of. And I also like that we have this silver trim pieces in the bottom, which I think looks really good in contrast with the black steering wheel. And these spokes on the sides with these controls are also new, comparing that to the old generation here. And I think it's also specific if you choose the AMG model or the regular GLE. You get different steering wheels that way as well. Overall, I think this new GLE is a really good facelift. As I said, they're selling a lot of these right now, so they wanted to make some tiny changes and bring it up in line with the rest of the model, the lineup of Mercedes, specifically when you talk about the lower front intake, and have that be up to date so it doesn't look too dated and too different from newer Mercedes models. And also having this new LED lights in the front and the rear. I think those subtle changes are good changes for the GLE, and it's still one of my favorite SUVs on sale today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.